Hello, and glad you can join us. Here's what's happening. A commitment to bolstering Canada's defence.
Our expectation for what we need to do to protect Canada have shifted.
The cost of meeting this country's security priorities. Chaotic protests spark a high-profile political clash.
I'm scared.
Plus, trapped and surrounded by a wall of fire, a survival story.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
A major announcement on defence spending and a huge boost to Canada's military. Prime Minister Mark Carney saying Canada will hit a target of 2% of GDP this fiscal year. It means new subs, new ships, new armoured vehicles, more staff. Canada's been under pressure for years to increase our NATO spending. There's even also a push to raise the benchmark. CTV's senior political correspondent Mike Couture now on this and what the commitment to spend billions really means. Mike.
Sandy, as the Prime Minister warned of a new imperialism threatening the world, Mark Carney says more military spending is needed to help protect Canada from multiplying threats.
Canada will achieve NATO's 2% of GDP target this year.
An ambitious announcement, considering during the election campaign, the Liberals promised to hit that mark in 5 years.
The nature of our alliance is changing, the expectations within those alliances, but also our expectation for what we need to do to protect Canada have shifted.
The expectation from the NATO alliance is also shifting. Today in London, Secretary General Mark Rutte asked for a 400% increase in air and missile defense, and he set a new spending target.
At the summit in The Hague, I expect allied leaders will agree to spend 5% of GDP on defense. It will be a NATO-wide commitment and a defining moment for the alliance.
Government numbers show Canada is spending 1.45% of GDP on defense. In the 2025-26 fiscal year, that figure was expected to be 1.71%. Adding $9 billion to the budget should hit the 2% target.
We will support additional money for our military. That's why we're calling on the government to bring in a budget, because all of this will require a budget.
While there is support for the new money, historically there has been a problem getting it out the door. Carney says a new procurement agency will help make that happen.
Canada spending 2% of GDP on defense is the Canadian government issue and not just something for the Department of National Defense and the Canadian Armed Forces to look after.
Now, Carney says getting to the spending target did not involve any creative accounting, even though senior government officials did say the expanded mandate of the Canadian Coast Guard will be folded into national defense.
Okay.
Sandy.
Mike, thank you. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum says she will attend the G7 summit that starts Sunday in Kananaskis, Alberta. Sheinbaum is one of several world leaders who are not part of the group of seven but she was invited by Prime Minister Mark Carney. The Mexican president says her team is working to set up bilateral meetings with leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump, who is also attending. Sheinbaum condemned the violence at the LA protests while calling on the U.S. to respect migrant rights. Police in Ottawa are investigating after the National Holocaust Monument was vandalized. The memorial was defaced with red paint and the message, "Feed me." Crews worked to remove the paint today while investigators with the city's hate crime unit are asking anyone with information to come forward. The monument commemorates the 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust. Ottawa's mayor called the act shocking and disturbing. Wildfires are still burning across the prairies from British Columbia through Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and into northwestern Ontario, where multiple wildfires are raging and a crew of 18 construction workers barely survived a harrowing experience. CTV's Alex Carba has their story as well as the situation in hard-hit Manitoba. Alex?
Sandy, several construction workers were encircled by a raging wildfire this weekend and were forced to huddle in a shipping container to protect themselves.
I'm scared. trapped.
Fire and smoke completely surrounded their work site in northwestern Ontario. A crew of 18 working at a site near Sandy Lake First Nation could be seen taking shelter inside the shipping container. Sigfussen Northern, a Manitoba construction company, said the crew was safely taken out of the site. They drove to the First Nation and were flown out of the community. Most of the crew is from Manitoba and have now been reunited with their families in a province that continues to see raging wildfires. 10 of 28 ongoing wildfires in the province remain out of control, forcing over 21,000 people to head south or out of province. The Manitoba government says there have been over 70 charges and infractions handed out, some of which are arson related. The province is also urging tourists not to visit the province as the government continues to try and find shelter for evacuees.
There are thousands of evacuees currently displaced, and the provincial government, along with its partners, has been working quickly to find accommodations that fit their comfort, medical, and family needs.
There is some positive news. Northern Manitoba did receive some rain over the weekend, but officials say it's not enough to make a big difference. Sandy?
Okay, Alex. In British Columbia, where dozens of wildfires are burning out of control, there isn't much relief in sight.
Current conditions on top of the ongoing drought and the overwintering fires in the northeast corner of British Columbia is setting us up for an increase in wildfire activity over the next few weeks.
There are currently 10 evacuation orders in the northeast of the province. A raging wildfire on Vancouver Island has grown, consuming approximately 24 hectares of forest since it was first discovered yesterday.
We've received some very beneficial rains and cooperative weather, and that, coupled with significant efforts from our firefighters and our frontline staff, we're resulting in progress and some positive developments.
And some good news for crews battling the flames in Saskatchewan. Officials pointing out that despite some progress, there are several out-of-control fires, including the Shoe Fire. Now, we've created an interactive tracker to show you where wildfires are burning across the country and where smoke is affecting air quality. You can find that by heading to ctvnews.ca. Well, widespread disruptions are expected in Montreal for at least the next 9 days as transit workers responsible for bus and subway services go on strike. But there's a bit of a reprieve midway for a premier car race that takes over the city for several days. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin now on the issues and the scramble to get around. Hi, Jen.
Yes, Andy, the buzz in the city is that the Montreal Grand Prix has to come off as a well-oiled machine for Montreal to keep its race, with so many other countries now wanting a spot on the Grand Prix circuit. And so a transit strike paralyzing transport would be a major roadblock. The strike has partially shut down service for several days, and some commuters were stranded this morning. But the Labor Tribunal has determined that essential services have to be maintained. That means rush hour service, but also keeping transit on track during the Grand Prix event Friday to Sunday, when the city is set to welcome 350,000 visitors.
The metro will stay open, the buses, everything has been done in order to have a magnificent weekend for le Grand Prix du Canada.
Last year there was no strike, but mix-ups between police, transit authorities, and the city created transport chaos to the site. Pouring rain also led to floods in paddocks and hospitality suites at the Grand Prix circuit. And the fire departments shut down some terraces in downtown Montreal while people were eating.
It was a very humbling year for us. We do recognize some of the issues that arose last year.
Officials say they've made many improvements to get the city ready, including limiting new construction sites in the downtown area and removing 250 of Montreal's famous orange construction cones to reopen 500 square meters of road. Today, there's just a few hours where the metro and buses are rolling, and that's left some grumbling about fast cars getting priority over their commute. Sandy.
Okay, Jen, thanks so much. It's a nail-biter. The Stanley Cup finals are tied 1 game apiece. The series has been as close as possible, with each team winning a game in overtime. Edmonton's coach says despite the tight nature of the games, the players cannot be afraid of making mistakes.
To say to the guys, don't turn the puck over, don't make a mistake, that's just a recipe for disaster. You still have to play on instincts. You still have to play to your strengths. The first 2 games were in Edmonton. Game 3 goes tonight in South Florida.
And a treasure trove of iconic fashion worn by the late Diana, Princess of Wales, is about to hit the auction block.
This is the largest Princess Diana auction because we have over 100 items from her amazing life and career.
Some notable items out for auction include a 1988 silk floral dress by Belleville Sassoon, dubbed the caring dress, as Diana wore it to several hospital visits. As well, a cream silk embroidered gown designed by Catherine Welker, and a Dior handbag gifted to her by France's First Lady Bernadette Chirac in 1995. The items are expected to fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars. The sale takes place on June the 26th. Coming up, the most vulnerable at risk.
In the third trimester of pregnancy, the immune system is somewhat down-regulated.
What some unborn babies are inheriting from their unprotected mothers. Closing arguments were underway today in the hockey sex assault trial in London, Ontario. 5 former World Junior hockey players are facing allegations made by a woman after an encounter in a hotel room. CTV's Heather Wright is in London. Okay, Heather, good to see you. Bring us up to speed.
Sandy, after weeks of testimony and cross-examination, closing submissions began this morning with defense attorneys telling the judge this case all comes down to credibility and reliability.
We believe EM.
A small group of protesters greeted the 5 defendants as they arrived at the London, Ontario courthouse this morning. Inside the 14th floor courtroom, defense attorneys began their closing arguments in a trial that has garnered international attention and sparked a national conversation about hockey culture. David Humphrey, the lawyer representing Michael McLeod, spoke first, arguing the complainant was not a victim but rather a willing participant who changed her story to garner sympathy from friends and family members and to bolster the civil lawsuit she filed against Hockey Canada. Humphrey told the court the complainant, known as EM, would rather be seen as a victim than face the repercussions of the choices she made, saying she lacks both credibility and reliability. This case dates back to June of 2018 when the complainant met McLeod and some of the other players at a downtown London bar and later went with McLeod to his hotel room. That initial encounter is not part of the trial, but rather what happened later when several other players arrived to the room. EM says she was pressured into performing sexual acts, was slapped and spat on. She testified she was too terrified to leave. Defense attorneys argue EM not only consented to the sexual acts, but actively participated and asked for them. Megan Savard, the lawyer representing Carter Hart, the only player to testify in his defense, said her client should be acquitted, saying that Hart saw nothing that made him think she did not consent. Closing arguments are expected to take several days. Once defense attorneys are done, the Crown will have their opportunity. And after that, the case will be in the hands of the judge, who is expected to take several weeks or even months to render her verdict. Sandy.
All right, Heather. Canada's Competition Bureau says it is suing DoorDash, accusing the food delivery company of advertising misleading prices and discounts. The Bureau says customers were unable to make purchases at the advertised price because mandatory fees were added at checkout. DoorDash is being sued for deceptive price and discount advertising. The Bureau is seeking a penalty and wants the company to offer restitution to customers. An update on the spread of measles across the country. The numbers are growing, but now word that 6 infants were born with a congenital virus acquired from their unvaccinated mothers. Ontario's top doctor wants to get the word out. Get your shot. CTV's Heather Butts now on the warning and the risk associated with exposure. Heather?
Sandy, when we're talking about infections in the youngest and most vulnerable people, it certainly brings heightened attention to an outbreak, something Ontario and this country has been dealing with for months. Babies and pregnant women now the focus of Canada's measles outbreak, with Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health confirming 6 infants were born with measles since last fall, infected in the womb through mothers who were not vaccinated, infections that could have been prevented. About 40 pregnant people have been infected with measles in Ontario. Women are urged to get the shot before becoming pregnant for the greatest effect. They can't receive the MMR vaccine while pregnant, but if exposed and seek medical attention immediately, doctors can help.
What we do is through blood donations, we pool people's antibodies, and that has the ability to provide you with passive immunity against measles, so that those antibodies that you're given fight the virus and help your body eliminate it or decrease the risk.
Just last week, officials confirmed an infant born prematurely and infected with measles died in southwestern Ontario. The infant also faced other serious unrelated medical complications. Ontario health officials say they are trying to work with communities that have chosen not to get the shot, but vaccine hesitancy is complex. It often takes communication, trust, and relationships in healthcare, an added challenge when millions of Canadians don't have a family doctor. Sandy.
All right, CTV's Heather Butts. The deaths of two prominent individuals to share with you now. Frederick Forsyth, the author behind the acclaimed thriller The Day of the Jackal, has died. Forsyth passed away Monday after a brief illness. He was a former Royal Air Force pilot who wrote 25 books over his career and was catapulted to fame in 1971 with Day of the Jackal. That was his first novel. The book was most recently adapted into a TV series starring Eddie Redmayne and Lashana Lynch. Forsyth was 86 years old. And a revolutionary musician who changed the sound of pop music in the 1960s and 70s has died. Sly Stone, the leader of the funk band Sly and the Family Stone, has died at the age of 82. The group had a series of hits including Everyday People and Dance to the Music. Most memorable, certainly that's for sure, the time they sang songs of celebration and protest at Woodstock. Here's more of one of Sly Stone's most famous anthems as we head to break. The situation is calmer today in Los Angeles after one of the most violent weekends in years. There were reports of vandalism and looting as rioters protesting the Trump administration's immigration crackdown set fires to cars and attacked police. The downtown has been declared an unlawful assembly area, and inflaming the situation is Donald Trump. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbman goes deeper into the issues. Hi, Joy.
Sandy, the city has become a flashpoint in the president's crackdown on immigration, and this is a fight that Donald Trump has been waiting for. And he is standing by his decision to deploy the National Guard. Hundreds are there already. And now we understand the White House is sending an additional 700 Marines. What began as peaceful protests in Los Angeles turned ugly this weekend as the Trump administration carried out military-style raids, rounding up undocumented immigrants. The president deployed the National Guard, an extraordinary move. California's governor said he never asked for, and is suing the administration that he says escalated tensions.
Where's your decency, Mr. President? Stop. Rescind this order. It's illegal and unconstitutional.
Police clashed with hundreds of protesters over the weekend as cars and trash cans were set on fire, throwing Molotov cocktails and projectiles at police. Demonstrators waving Mexican flags blocked Highway 101 in both directions for hours on Sunday. Police fired tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse the crowd. An Australian reporter caught in the crossfire.
You just shut the You okay?
She's okay, as the president defended sending in the National Guard.
People that are causing the problem are professional agitators, they're insurrectionists, they're bad people, they should be in jail. Thank you.
Trump said he'll arrest anyone obstructing the immigration raids. California's governor says, go ahead and try.
Arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn. But I care about my community.
Become an arrestor. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing.
As Donald Trump tests the power of his presidency, California's Governor Gavin Newsom fired back, filing a legal challenge in the courts, calling the president's actions unlawful and that it tramples on state sovereignty. Sandy?
Okay, Joy, thank you. A suspect has now turned himself into police after a shooting on the famous Las Vegas Strip left 2 people dead. A live stream captured a gunman opening fire on the street in front of the Bellagio Hotel fountains. The violence sent horrified tourists scrambling for safety. Investigators believe the man and at least one of the victims knew each other and had been involved in a dispute online. Well, Greta Thunberg and other activists on a Gaza-bound aid boat were detained early this morning when Israeli forces enforced a long-standing blockade.
I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
Thunberg recorded that message before she was detained. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition, which organized the voyage, claims the activists were kidnapped by Israeli forces. However, Israel's foreign ministry posted online that the, quote, selfie yacht of celebrities is safely en route to Israel, adding the activists would return to their home countries and the aid would be sent to Gaza through proper channels, that is. And a remarkable discovery in Syria unearthed from the ruins of the civil war, ruins from an historic empire. A contractor digging into the rubble of a destroyed home in the city of Idlib stumbled across the remains of an underground Byzantine tomb complex believed to be more than 1,500 years old. The city is home to hundreds of archaeological sites, but suffered looting and destruction during the 14-year Syrian civil war. The new discovery contains 2 burial chambers and 6 stone tombs. And CTV National News will be right back. After a week on the loose in Tennessee, a runaway zebra was finally captured and airlifted back to its owner in great style. Have a look. Just hours after being acquired by new owners, Ed the zebra showed his true stripes, making a run for it. Cell phone and security footage captured the African equine roaming through the streets. Deputies used drones to track the animal's movements and eventually caught up with him in a pasture. And on that note, as we say goodbye, we're remembering revolutionary musician Sly Stone, who died today at the age of 82. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Thanks for spending your time with us. Give a listen to this music. You can't hear enough of it. Bye for now.